I kept a $3 million prize to myself when I originally planned to share it with my boyfriend. My boyfriend Tyler and I have been playing the lottery together for 3 years. Every Friday night, we pull our money and buy tickets at the gas station on 5th Street. Same numbers every time. His birthday, my birthday, and the day we started dating. It was our little ritual. Tyler worked construction and I was a cashier at Target. We split everything down the middle. Rent, groceries, even Netflix. When we talked about what we'd do if we ever won big, it was always we. Tyler would say we'd buy a house with a huge garage for his tools. I joke about quitting my job and going back to school 3 weeks ago. Tyler had to work late on a Friday. I almost didn't go get our tickets, but something made me drive to the gas station anyway. I bought our usual numbers, plus one extra ticket with random picks just for fun. Saturday morning, I was drinking coffee and checking the numbers on my phone. Our regular ticket was a bust like always, but that random ticket, my hand started shaking. I checked it 5 times before it sank in. $300,000. My first instinct was to call Tyler. I started dialing his number, then stopped. Something in my gut told me to wait. Maybe it was remembering how he'd been acting lately. Staying out until midnight with his work buddies, being secretive about his phone, snapping at me for stupid stuff. I decided to test him. That afternoon, I brought up our future plans, asked if he really saw us together long term. Tyler got this weird look and said he'd been thinking we should take a break, said he needed space to figure things out. I played dumb and asked if there was someone else. He denied it, but I could tell he was lying. So I pushed harder. Finally, he admitted he'd been seeing Cassie from his job site for 2 months. Said it just happened and he was sorry, but he couldn't help how he felt. I sat there acting heartbroken while inside I was doing backflips. This cheating piece of garbage was about to lose out on the biggest payday of his life. I told him fine, we could take a break. He looked relieved. Said he'd come get his stuff next week when I was at work so it wouldn't be awkward. Real classy. That Monday I went to the lottery office during my lunch break, signed all the paperwork, got the check, put it straight into a new bank account he knew nothing about. Tyler came by Wednesday to get his tools and clothes. I watched him load up his truck knowing he had no idea what he'd just walked away from. He even had the nerve to say he hoped we could still be friends. The next week, I quit Target, told my manager I was moving to help take care of my sick aunt. Tyler had no idea I even had an aunt. I found a cute apartment across town and put down 6 months rent up front. 2 weeks later, my friend Jenna told me Tyler had been asking around about me. Apparently, Cassie dumped him after she found out he was broke and living on his friend's couch. He wanted to get back together. He started texting me non-stop. Said breaking up was the biggest mistake of his life, that he missed our Friday lottery routine and wanted to try again. I ignored every single message. Yesterday, he showed up at my old apartment. My former neighbor said he looked confused when she told him I'd moved out weeks ago. He kept asking where I went and if I'd left any forwarding address. I blocked his number this morning. Tyler will never know how close he came to being. I blocked his number this morning. Tyler will never know how close he came to being left with nothing. While I started an entirely new life, I used a portion of the money to completely remodel the apartment, making it feel like a home I actually deserved to live in, with furniture I chose, not rented hand-me-downs. I signed up for night classes in graphic design, something I'd always wanted to study but never had the time or money for, and I paid for them upfront so I wouldn't owe a single cent. I even bought a car that wasn't falling apart every other week, a little sedan that felt safe and luxurious all at once. I started volunteering at a local animal shelter because it reminded me how good it feels to give back, and I realized that for the first time in my life, I was doing everything entirely for me, without having to worry about anyone else's opinions or needs. Slowly, I began to notice the shift in how people treated me. Friends and coworkers, who once shrugged me off, started noticing the confidence I carried. Not because of money, but because of the way I finally stood up for myself. I even reconnected with my younger sister, who had always resented Tyler's influence over me. She saw me for the first time in years and said I finally looked happy. I laughed at how simple it was. Remove the toxic person from your life, and suddenly everything else seems manageable. Every Friday, I still bought a lottery ticket, but now it was just for fun. Not some desperate hope to share a dream with someone who didn't deserve it. I started keeping a journal about everything, my goals, my frustrations, little victories, and over time, it became a record of how I'd gone from being betrayed to thriving. I paid off all my old debts, the ones that Tyler never cared about, the ones that had kept me awake at night worrying about rent, about bills, about what would happen if something went wrong. I even started a small emergency fund for my aunt, because she had helped me so much when I quit Target, and now I could give back in a meaningful way. Meanwhile, Tyler kept trying to reach me. sending messages that ranged from apologetic to desperate to downright arrogant, thinking somehow I would forgive him now that he had nothing. Now that his life had collapsed the way he once ignored mine. I saved screenshots of his messages because there was a small satisfaction in knowing I had the proof of exactly how much he had lost. Not just the money, but the trust and the respect that could never be reclaimed. One evening, a month after I moved, he showed up again at the new apartment. I had changed the locks, so when he banged on the door, I didn't answer. He left after about 15 minutes, muttering and banging on the door one last time. But I felt nothing. There was no thrill, no rush, no temptation to let him back into my life. Only peace. I bought a vacation to the coast with Jenna and a few friends who genuinely supported me. We stayed in a beach house overlooking the ocean, and for the first time in years, I slept without worry, without fear, without a single shred of anxiety about someone betraying me. The nights were calm, the mornings bright, and I realized that this life, built entirely on my choices, was exactly what I deserved. Tyler's name no longer crossed my mind, except when I laughed at the absurdity of everything he had missed out on, including me finally learning how powerful it feels to prioritize your own happiness. I even started mentoring young women at the local community center, teaching them about financial independence and self-respect, sharing my story not to boast, but to show them that it was possible to turn betrayal into strength, to take control of your own destiny even when someone you trusted most tried to sabotage it. I invested in stocks slowly and carefully, growing the money in ways that Tyler had never understood, learning the language of finance and independence. Every day, I checked my account not with fear, but with pride. I started hosting small dinner parties in my apartment, cooking meals I wanted to make, inviting friends who made me feel alive, people who valued me for who I was, not what I could provide. I even adopted a cat, a fluffy little gray rescue I named Luna, who curled up on my lap every evening as I pored over my classes and work projects, a small comfort that symbolized the life I had reclaimed. When I passed the same gas station where Tyler and I used to buy tickets, I didn't feel nostalgia or loss. I felt gratitude for the randomness of life that had finally handed me exactly what I deserved. One evening, I received a letter in the mail from Tyler's mother, who had heard about the lottery win from a distant relative. She tried to guilt me into sharing, to remind me of family bonds and loyalty. I smiled and filed it away, realizing she had no power over me, no claim to my happiness or my success. Weeks turned into months. I continued building, learning, investing, growing. Friends came and went, but the core people who mattered stayed. I realized that true wealth wasn't just money. It was the peace, the autonomy, the ability to wake up each day without fear of betrayal or manipulation. And somewhere in the back of my mind, I knew that Tyler would never comprehend this, that he would never understand how close he had been to sharing in something life-changing, and lost it because he had chosen deceit and disrespect. The lottery win became more than just money. It became a catalyst, a symbol of reclaiming control, of setting boundaries, and finally of living life entirely on my own terms. I never once regretted the choice to keep the winnings, not because I was cruel, but because I had been betrayed, and now, finally, I was free. Every purchase, every investment, every life choice reflected the new person I had become: independent, strong, unshakable. And while Tyler drifted from couch to couch, chasing apologies that would never come, I was building a legacy for myself, one that would last far longer than a Friday night lottery ticket ever could. Each morning, I woke up grateful, knowing I had transformed a moment of heartbreak into a lifetime of triumph. I could finally see the world as a place full of possibilities, not limitations imposed by someone else's betrayal. And for the first time, I truly believed in my own worth. Story to my cheating wife said, "I'm done with this marriage." I just smiled and replied, "Works for me." A month later, she showed up at my new place and froze when she saw who I was having dinner with. Chapter 1: The Last Straw. For weeks, I had been sensing the shift. Late-night work calls that didn't add up, lingering perfume that wasn't hers, the glow of text messages she quickly turned face down. But I stayed quiet. I wasn't the kind of man who needed to fight for attention. We'd been married for 8 years. Through student loans, job losses, and to miscarriages, I stood by her. She cried in my arms. I held her hair back when she was sick. And I thought foolishly that love meant loyalty. But lately, her words had sharp edges. Every small disagreement turned into a screaming match. She called me boring, predictable, not a man. And that night when she came home past midnight again, wearing heels I'd never seen before, I simply asked, "Where were you?" She didn't flinch. She didn't even lie. Instead, she dropped her purse, kicked off her heels, and snapped, "You know what? I'm done with this marriage." I stood there quietly for a moment. Then I smiled. Not a fake hurt smile, a calm, relieved one. The kind you give when a storm finally passes. Works for me, I said, grabbing my jacket. I've been done for a while, she blinked, thrown off by my reaction. That's it. That's all you have to say. I looked her straight in the eyes. There's nothing left to say, you already said it all with your actions. And with that, I walked out the door. Little did she know that wasn't the end. It was just the beginning of something she never saw coming. Chapter 2, Cleaning up the ashes. The morning after I left, I booked a one-bedroom apartment in a quiet part of town near the lake, far from the noise of my old life. I didn't even bother taking furniture. Just a mattress, my laptop, and 2 bags of clothes. That first week silent, no calls. No texts, not even from her family. People I once called mine, too. She must have told them some soba story, painting herself as a victim. I didn't care. I didn't need to explain myself anymore. But while she partied, I planned. And the first thing I did was visit our lawyer. Turns out when she yelled, "I'm done with this marriage," and I agreed, that counted as mutual separation. And because I moved out peacefully and kept records of our bank transactions, GPS data, and even her private Uber account, I was already 10 steps ahead. She didn't know I had screenshots of her messages with her trainer, or that I'd hired a private investigator the month before, or that I had footage of her spending weekends at hotels under a fake name booked with our joint credit card.c. While she was busy destroying our marriage, I was documenting the demolition. I closed our joint accounts, froze her access to the emergency fund. I even moved my paycheck to a new private bank she didn't know about. By the time she noticed, it was too late. She was still living in the house. Yes, but every utility was in my name. And when I shut off the gas and electricity, she finally called. "Why would you do this?" She snapped. I answered coldly. "You said you were done. I'm just making sure your actions match your words." Then I hung up. That was the last time we spoke until exactly 1 month later. And that night, she showed up, but not alone. And she wasn't prepared for who she saw sitting at the table across from me. Chapter 3, The Dinner Guest. The smell of garlic butter and seared steak drifted through my apartment. Jazz played low on the Bluetooth speaker. The lights were dim, the mood relaxed, and laughter echoed from across a small dinner table. Across from me sat a woman I hadn't seen in years, Emily, my ex-wife's former best friend. She used to be part of our inner circle. But when my wife started cheating, she cut Emily off, said she was too judgmental, and always sticking her nose where it didn't belong. In reality, Emily had simply asked her one honest question. "Are you sure you're not ruining the best thing that ever happened to you?" That was enough to get her exiled. And now here we were sharing a meal, laughing over wine. Emily had just flown in for a week-long business seminar and had texted me out of the blue. After seeing my relationship status mysteriously change on Facebook, she looked radiant, confident, mature, nothing like the drama my ex had become. We weren't dating yet, but there was something real forming, something steady, respectful, mutual. And just as Emily stood up to clear the plates, there was a knock on the door, a heavy, rushed knock. I opened the door, and there she was, my ex-wife, wearing her fake designer sunglasses on her head, holding some flowers like this was some high school rom-com where she could just walk in and take her place back. She smiled stiffly. "I just came to talk. Maybe we could." But then her eyes drifted behind me. She saw Emily, and her entire face collapsed. "You've got to be kidding me," she muttered, her voice low, tight. Ely stepped beside me, wiping her hands with a kitchen towel. "Evening, Sarah," she said politely. "Hope you're doing well." My ex's jaw clenched, her pride swallowed like a bitter pill. "Of all people," she whispered. I stepped between them calmly. "You said you were done, remember?" "So was I, and Emily. She's here because she values what you threw away." There was a long silence. She blinked once, twice. "You'll regret this," she finally spat. "Both of you." I tilted my head and smiled. "No, Sarah. I've never been more certain of anything." Then I closed the door. Behind it, Emily poured another glass of wine, and we didn't talk about her again. Chapter 4. Cracks in the mask. Word spread faster than wildfire in our town. First, it was whispers. The kind exchanged in hushed voices at nail salons and whispered between sips of coffee at the bakery. Then it was posts on social media, vague enough to protect the gossipers, but pointed enough to humiliate my ex-wife. "Did you see who showed up to Daniel's condo and walked out looking like she saw a ghost? Emily with him after what Sarah did to both of them." Karma doesn't play favorites. She tried to save face at first, posted pictures of herself with a new friend, an obviously forced smile on her lips, tagging locations like living my best life and peace drama. But people weren't buying it anymore. Because here's the thing about Sarah. She built her identity on appearances. Designer clothes she couldn't afford. social media filters that smoothed over the cracks in her marriage, a facade of control, loyalty, and sophistication. But once that curtain dropped, once people saw what she really did, how she discarded me like a used napkin, while I had built her a life of stability, it was over, the nail in the coffin. Her new boyfriend dumped her. Turns out he found her too clingy, too controlling. And when he learned she was married when they started hooking up, "You didn't tell me you were cheating on your husband," he messaged her loud and clear in a group text leak. "I don't mess with people like you." Sarah's boss, a man who prided himself on professionalism, called her in for a meeting. "We value integrity here, and unfortunately, your recent behavior has become a distraction in the office." She wasn't fired, but she was transferred to a less visible department where no one greeted her in the break room. Meanwhile, Emily and I kept things quiet. No posts, no boasts, just peace. And that infuriated Sarah even more. She texted me, "You think you're better than me now?" Was she worth throwing everything away? I never replied because the truth was she had already thrown it all away herself. Chapter 5: The Letter and the Last Laugh. 3 weeks later, I received a handwritten envelope slipped under my door. It had no return address. Inside was a letter folded neatly. The handwriting was familiar. It was Sarah's. "Daniel, I've spent the past month convincing myself you're the villain. That you manipulated Emily. That you planned this whole thing to hurt me. But the truth is, I hurt myself. I broke something that was whole because I thought there was something shinier waiting for me. I was wrong," she rambled on. Apologies, regrets, and finally a plea. "Can we at least talk as friends? You were the best thing that ever happened to me, and I threw you away for nothing." I didn't respond because the next evening I had somewhere to be. The fundraiser Emily and I attended a public fundraiser gala hosted by the nonprofit I helped support for years. It was a big, elegant event. Press coverage, politicians, local celebrities. Sarah was there too. She didn't expect me to show up, let alone with Emily on my arm. Worse for her, she was serving drinks. Laid off from her corporate role due to reputation complications. She'd taken part-time work through a staffing agency. The universe has a funny sense of irony. She saw us before we saw her. Glass tray shaking in her hands. She stood frozen. Emily looked at her, then turned to me with a soft smile and whispered, "You were always worth more than how she treated you." The event host, a friend of mine, called me to the stage. "Let's take a moment to honor one of our most generous donors, a man who rebuilt himself with grace, strength, and integrity." Daniel Carter. As I walked up to the mic, applause echoed. Sarah watched from the edge of the ballroom, her eyes brimming with tears. "Sometimes," I began, "we lose things, money, relationships, even family. But if we keep our head up, focus on who we are rather than what others made us believe, we find something better." Thank you to everyone who stood by me. And to those who didn't, thank you for teaching me how to stand alone. When the night ended, we stepped out into the cool air. I looked at Emily, holding her hand. "Ready to go home?" She nodded. Behind us, through the glass doors, Sarah stood watching alone. The keys to her kingdom gone. The man she mocked honored. And the life she discarded happier without her. Epilogue. Healing doesn't ask for permission. 6 months had passed since that unforgettable fundraiser night. The night Sarah realized just how much she'd lost and how far I'd come. I didn't block her number. I didn't rage online. I didn't stoop to her level. I simply outgrew her life now. Emily and I didn't rush anything. We took our time. To people scarred by betrayal. Slowly learning what trust felt like again. Some nights we stayed up talking about the pain, the confusion, the lies. But most nights we laughed, cooked dinner together, and made plans, not around what we lost, but around what we were building. My business thriving, my home peaceful, my heart no longer looking backward. The last attempt. One afternoon, I received an email titled, "Can we talk?" It was from Sarah. She said she missed the kids, the routine. The you that kept everything together, while she wandered off thinking she could do better. She said she was finally in therapy, that she was ready to try again. I didn't reply. Instead, I forwarded it to my lawyer just in case. One final sight. Weeks later, I ran into her by chance at the grocery store. She looked different, older, tired. The confidence spark she used to weaponize was now a dull flicker. She opened her mouth to speak. Maybe an apology. Maybe something else. I just smiled, nodded politely, and walked past. She didn't follow because by now she understood. You don't get to hurt someone. Leave them bleeding. Then come back when they've healed, expecting the same seat at the table. Some people lose diamonds while collecting stones. Final line, "I'm done with this marriage," she had said. And I had smiled. Works for me. Turns out it really did. Was this revenge perfectly justified? Or should the storm have raged harder? Drop your verdict below. I read every single one. Hit like if you crave justice and share the story with someone who needs its fire. Subscribe to Revenge Exposed. Backhouse here. Betrayals don't sleep. They hunt their owners. Every shadow hides a reckoning. Every mask breaks. And every betrayal is answered. Stay sharp. Stay unbroken. Stay tuned.